Right now, if you ask researchers, what does it mean to have a metabolic disorder? Or if you even ask researchers a really basic common sense question, how is it that obesity, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease fit together? How precisely, physiologically, how does obesity result in a heart attack? How does obesity result in type 2 diabetes? And what does type 2 diabetes have to do with heart attacks? Now, one term that a lot of people have probably heard of is one phrase that people will use to explain all of that is insulin resistance. And there's a large number of people who've written many books saying that insulin resistance is the definition of a metabolic problem or a metabolic disorder, and insulin resistance can explain all of those connections. But in fact, insulin resistance alone cannot explain all of those connections. Insulin resistance is a very complicated thing. I am asserting that and actually it's based on a tremendous amount of science. If you actually get into the details of science, insulin resistance is simply a symptom of metabolic dysfunction. And if you get into the weeds, the scientific weeds, the cell biology weeds of, well, what exactly does insulin resistance mean? What does it really mean? You must get to mitochondria and mitochondrial dysfunction. Because in fact, even on that particular point, mitochondria are actually primarily responsible for sensing the amount of glucose in the human body and in human cells. Mitochondria play a direct role in releasing and regulating insulin. Mitochondria play a role in utilizing glucose, and mitochondria play a role in transporting insulin receptors to the cell membrane and allowing insulin to actually work. So there's no way around it. You can't talk about insulin resistance without talking about mitochondria. The reason I prefer to talk about mitochondria as opposed to insulin resistance is because insulin resistance falls short in many ways. It does not explain everything that we need to explain. It does not explain all of the biological factors that play a role. It does not at all explain the psychological and social factors that play a role in mental illness and also metabolic illnesses. So if we go a little bit deeper, if we are more precise in what we are talking about and how we are defining metabolic dysfunction, that is when we can finally, once and for all, connect all the dots. So most people know mitochondria as the powerhouse of the cell. That means they take in food and oxygen and they turn it into ATP, which is the energy currency of the cell. There is no doubt they do that, and they are the powerhouses of the cell. But mitochondria do so much more than that. Mitochondria actually play a direct role in the production, regulation, and release of neurotransmitters such as serotonin, dopamine, GABA, and acetylcholine. Mitochondria play a direct role in the production, regulation, and release of some really important hormones that everyone's heard of: cortisol, estrogen, testosterone, progesterone. Mitochondria play a direct role in the regulation of gene expression in the cell nucleus. They are the primary regulator of what's called epigenetics, or the expression of different genes at different times, including during neurodevelopment. So that starts to get into neurodevelopmental disorders. Mitochondria play a direct role in inflammation, turning it both on and off. And here's a little bit of shocking news to a lot of people. Mitochondria play a direct role in the human stress response. When humans are stressed, either physically or psychologically, mitochondria are regulating the stress response. They are regulating the cortisol release, the inflammation that occurs. They are regulating the release of adrenaline. And they are also regulating the expression of genes in the hippocampus in particular. I'll stop there. Mitochondria do so many things. And, I've talked with one or two researchers who've actually said, well, but mitochondria do everything. So I'm not feeling good about this assertion or this theory. And this is from even researchers who have tried to assert what I'm asserting, that mitochondria are the common pathway to mental illness. And they've been confused by that, or thought that maybe they haven't really discovered a whole lot. And what I'm here to say is, no, actually, this is the missing link. This is the missing link that we have been searching for when trying to understand mental disorders, when trying to understand things like, why do people with mental illness also have all sorts of physical disorders? Why are they more likely to have migraine headaches? Why are they more likely to have seizures? Why are they more likely to have pain disorders? Why are they more likely to have gastrointestinal disorders like irritable bowel syndrome? Why are they more likely to have thyroid disorders? Why are they more likely to die early deaths? Why are they more likely to have heart attacks, develop obesity, develop diabetes? This is the only way to understand all of those well-known, well-documented observations.